Welcome everybody to our evening here, our artist talk with artist Brandon Alexander. I'm Donald Gensler. I am the manager of our Art in Public Places program here at the City of Sacramento through the Office of Arts and Culture. In 2018, the City of Sacramento City Council adopted our cultural plan, Creative Edge. And then in 2019, City Council allocated funding for different programs that were listed in that Creative Edge cultural plan. And one of those was to infuse communities and neighborhoods with art and culture in Sacramento. And so we created a program called Community Murals Sacramento, which saw over 139 people apply, and 39 artists were selected from around the city and even outside to participate in this program as muralists and assistants all around the city in every council district. So we had a mural in each council district, and a couple districts even got 2 murals. So today I'm really thrilled and excited to present to you Brandon Alexander, who, interestingly enough, I had just met a little bit before the mural program, and so I was excited that Brandon did apply, and the panel selected him as one of the lead artists for the program in District 2. And although we didn't realize it, Brandon had also grown up in that area, and so I'm really excited. Brandon is a multidisciplinary artist, originally from the Sacramento area and has lived in some other areas as well. And he brings an energy to the city, both through his mural work, but also through his work in fashion and production, and a number of different disciplines and artists that he works with. So he's going to share for you today a bit of his background, the work that he does, and talk a little bit about the project that he did at Hagenwood Community Center. So if we could just hold all our questions. If you have any questions, we'll just hold them to the end, and we'll have a question and discussion session at the end of this. And this recorded artist talk will also is on our website as part of communitymuralssacramento.org. So with that, thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening. And I'd like to introduce Brandon Alexander.
Hey, Donald. Appreciate the intro. Everybody watching. So let's just jump right into it. Like Donald said, I grew up in District 2, North Sacramento. Went to Natomas High School. My family was 3-4 generations of Grand High School attendees, and that school has a lot of richness. It has a lot of culture. It has a lot of significance in Sacramento. So I got to see a lot of the development of Sacramento through my family being so intertwined in the neighborhood. And that definitely played a huge role in me as an artist and just my perspective in general, on my community and with things that I create. Art, how did I get into art? I started doing art. My grandfather introduced me to art initially. He was staying with us. I remember when I was a little kid, maybe 7 years old, 6 years old. And prior to him moving in, it was just me, my mom, and my little brother. And so, I was essentially the man in the house. And when Grandpa moved in, he wanted to watch the football game and the baseball game. So he needed to occupy me some way. So I'm not turning on the TV to Donald Duck and Buzz Lightyear. And so he sat me down and he would task me to draw different things, different cartoons that I would be essentially watching. He would have me drawing them. And so at first, and until I finished, I couldn't get back up on my TV. So at first I would try to trace it, and I would come back, "Hey, Grandpa, I'm done." And he'd be like, "Man, get out of here. You didn't draw that." And so that kind of jump started, me sitting down, practicing art. Fast forward, I just kept it with me. I got into high school, started playing sports. It was always something that was kind of present, but on the back end to other things, my social life. But it was always present though. It was just in the back. and became a young adult, turned 18, trying to figure out what I want to do in life with my life. And I think I asked myself a question one day, like, well, man, trying to make sense of the decision I'm about to make. And I asked myself, well, what have you been doing the longest, and what can you see yourself doing forever, right? Regardless of money, regardless of any benefits that it has, what can you see yourself doing forever? And let's try to make that, what we put our future into. Seems like it would be the least stressful, right, direction to go. So art, art was something that I had a long history with. And at that point, it was just a matter of learning how to monetize, learning where art fits into real life, learning, what comes with it, what's required of you, to bleed into it, to, affect what you get out of it. So, I went down that journey, right? And I went through the creative processes and learned different components of art through how it translates to fashion and sports and sports being a physical art, art of the body, which is no different than dance. And I think weaving through all of these different worlds that live inside of the art world, I think the conclusion that I drew from that was art is communication, right? And in a nutshell, right, whether it's a mural that's yelling at someone on the wall, at a 100-foot scale, or whether it's a song that's telling you literally what they mean, or a canvas painting that's subliminally telling you what they mean. At the root of it all, it's communication. Being that I grew up around a lot of people who were around a lot of people, my world was very big. I had access to see life through a lot of different lenses. And so communication, you're around that many people, communication is key, right? You learn that. And so, having these two things that are both essentially the same, I was able to marry the two, and it made sense for me to pursue art. Jumping back to 18 years old, 2 years later, I was 20 years old, and I think it took those 2 years to really make my mind up. This is what I want to do. And I was living in Sacramento, and I knew I needed to get away from Sacramento to focus, right? Because that very community that I pulled so much from was also my distraction. There's no way I could sit down and focus and become an artist or find the position that I want in the art world, right, here in Sacramento at that time, because there's too many things that can pull on me and will pull on me. So I moved away to Las Vegas, and I don't like the desert. I don't like the heat. I don't like gambling. I'm not into smoking cigarettes. I'm not into anything about the Las Vegas lifestyle. And that's why it was the perfect place for me to go to, essentially get in tune with my art, right? Because there weren't things there that were enticing to me, So stayed there for 5 years. And in those 5 years, I really became close with my craft. I really figured out what am I saying? If this is communication, what are you communicating? What is the purpose of these things that you create? So I'm troubleshooting and fine tuning and just molding myself as an artist, not just as a painter, but as an artist. And an artist to me is a master communicator, right? So figuring out what that looks like. What does that look like in fashion? What does that look like, in total? What does that look like in curating events? And so got my foundation together in Las Vegas. And once I kind of figured out who I was and what I wanted to do and what my strengths were in comparison to, my other artist colleagues out there, then it was time to move to Los Angeles. And 5 years in Las Vegas, and I spent 5 years in LA. And when I moved to LA, what LA taught me, Vegas gave me my foundation, right? It gave me the time to focus and be alone with my craft, to develop that intimate relationship with it and that trust with it. When I went to LA, it was time to apply it. And that's exactly what LA did. It taught me what to do with my art and how to maneuver it and where art is useful and where art is used, right, in the world, and how to get things done through your art. So I got to see artists play at a higher level, higher skill level, a higher social level, higher financial level, right? And it made sense. Everything started to click. And so I spent 5 years there. And while I was there, I got to work with some really cool, notable names. I got to work with TDE, which is Kendrick Lamar's label. I got to work with, I did a project for UCLA, did a mural in Beverly Hills. I worked with P. Diddy on some of his alcohol line, DeLeon, designing some of their seasonal bottles. And what else did I do in LA? I did a few things, but it was cool because I got to see LA from the bottom down rather than from the top down rather than from the bottom down. It looks different, from that perspective. And that helped me gain a lot of understanding. And so fast forward 5 years, I moved back to Sacramento. And because of what I learned in LA, it helped me see the chessboard in Sacramento differently. I could see where the holes are. I could see what things were missing. I could see what things were coming. I had a better bird's eye view now of this place and just how I wanted to approach it artistically. So that's kind of how my art, that brings us to where we are now. I'm currently living in Sacramento, and this is after 5 years in Las Vegas, developing after 5 years of LA, of learning how to use my craft. So now the chapter I'm in Sacramento is I'm applying all those things and I'm demonstrating. So, from the clothes to the shows to the art to, giving the art narrative and making it speak and creating more than just a visual experience with my art, but creating a multi-sensory experience, right? There's morals in this, there's community, there's lessons, there's lessons that span across time. These will forever be valuable. Some of the things that I'm speaking to in my art. And so that's where I'm at. That's what I'm currently in the middle of right now. Not only that, but also showing my art colleagues how to intertwine and where art works in the commercial space as well. And still being able to be true to yourself as an artist and your story, your narrative, and what you're looking to accomplish. So I'm in the middle of demonstration right now. So with that being said, we can go into some art. Let's see if I can get this right. Photos. Okay, bear with me here. Okay. 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 Can you guys see the screen? You gotta probably mute it. Okay.
Yep, looks good.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, seems to be good. All right. So in developing myself as an artist, going back to the communication component, right? People speak different languages. People don't all communicate the same. And so I think with that, I felt like I needed to be able to speak in different tongues in my art, right? There's art that functions well in different spaces, right? It's like there's music that functions well in different spaces, and there's music that doesn't function well in different spaces. So one of the styles, so with that being said, I wanted to be able to speak to a broader audience of people. So I created different styles that serve different purposes. So this first style here is the clouds. And the clouds for me have a real symbolic meaning. I'm a very spiritual person, a very, person that's in tune with self and the things around me, and things that are going on. And so that's one of the things that I speak to that's very present in my work. And the clouds, I feel like, is something that we all can relate to. It works well in a commercial space. It can be in a restaurant, to someone's home, to someone's man cave, right? It's one of those conversations that a lot of people can relate to. It's speaking in a tongue that a lot of people can relate to. So I created this type of style for my commercial work, right? This is an edit that I did. This is a commission piece that I did for a company called Primetime Colors. They're a print company, but using the clouds and spaces like this, the clouds also have a spiritual symbolism for me, as far as where I go to find clarity, where I go to find, my peace of mind, and to make sense of things that are going on down here. It can be a bit tricky looking what's right in front of you. So it has multiple meanings. Style. This is a few different looks at how it functions in some spaces. So another voicing, if you say, means of communication is an abstract communication, right? There's abstract thinkers, there's abstract people. I'm an abstract person. So I wanted something, that can also speak to people who like bold colors and bold energy and forceful colors that jump out and kind of grab at you. So I created a style, you can see here, that speaks to that kind of energy. And for me, this was the style that I spent the least time working on, and it's cool because this style is very loose for me. It's very loose. It's very uncontrolled, and it's just kind of random. And it worked out because this style is also the style that I use for my clothing line. And the first time I made a jacket, the first time I actually made a jacket, it got published on two of the biggest models at the time. One, the guy's name is Don Benjamin, and he was the first male to win America's Top Model. And it was this type of style that had an impact in the fashion world. I don't think my clouds or the other styles that I'll show in a second would have been able to translate to clothing as well. And so this style was the style that I cared about the least, because it was so loose and so uncontrolled. I like to be very intentional that I didn't pay it any mind. But in my process of becoming an artist and becoming a creative, I asked for a way to not lean the responsibility of everything that I want from the art world solely on my paintbrush, right? That's a lot of stress. That's a lot of stress to put on one muscle, right? We're just talking about the gym. If you're in the gym and your whole workout is on your back, right? You're not going to have it back for too long. And so I wanted to spread my creativity around so that I don't have to rely solely on my paintbrush to do all the things that I need to do for me, because I want to be able to do it forever, and I don't want to come to a point where I resent it, or a relationship gets tainted because it's not doing what I need fast enough, or and that's the artist's plight. And so created these other styles, as well as to be able to communicate differently, but to also be able to do different things for me. So this style particularly opened up a lane for me as a designer, and to have a clothing line. There was something that I heard the artist Cause say before, and he was in an interview, and he said, the interviewer asked him, you've done the Macy's Day Parade, you have Jordan collaborations. Was it always the plan to be this big? Was that always like the goal? And he said, no. He said something that really stuck out to me. He said, no, that wasn't necessarily the goal. But he said, unlike his artist colleagues, he said they were struggling to, from job to job, bouncing around from job to job, trying to paint as much as they could. And he said, because of that, they were always in survival mode. He said, I had a clothing line and my clothing line was doing well on its own. And because my clothing line was doing well, it provided me the financial stability that I needed. And I was able, he said, the only difference was I was able to think about doing bigger things. You know what I mean? And that made a lot of sense to me. He said, I had the luxury of having the time to just think about doing bigger things, where other artists didn't even have the time to think about that because they had to get to the next project, and create the next idea. And that made a lot of sense to me. He bought himself some time, and that not only preserved them, but it allowed him to think and execute bigger. So, that made a lot of sense to me. And I wanted that component. And I wanted that component in my story as an artist. I like the preservation that it brought, his paintings, and the way he was able to brand himself, and he didn't have to take every opportunity. He wasn't pressed. His art wasn't stressed out. And so with this style, that's what came from it. Here's another look at it. I'm sorry to stay on the same slide for so long. This is the new Get a Clue store in Arden. They're actually opening up July 2nd, I believe is the date now. And, again, this style has a commercial component. It doesn't say age. It doesn't speak to, it speaks to everyone. So it can function in spaces like this. And Brandon Alexander can be in these type of spaces and still communicate, but just through a different time. So next style, I wanted to do something that was more personal. Like the last two styles were very loose, kind of vague, inclusive of everyone. This style, I still wanted to have that inclusive component, but I wanted it to be able to get a little bit more personal. So I created a collection of characters. And that's not one of that style. I'll start with these two. But so all different nationalities, different age groups. In the main collection that I have, they all have these wordings, which seem to be almost like writings, in the back. And that again speaks to communication. You can't really make sense of what it says, but it's saying something, right? And that's the whole point, is to just reinforce that this is all communication. The idea behind this collection and this style is, this is something that, again, it goes back into preservation. I'm always trying to find ways to make sure that I can do this forever, that it doesn't get old. I personally would look at artists who have, one focus, right? Maybe it might be landscapes. And, you can only paint so many landscapes before we're tired of seeing you paint landscapes, right? Or only paint so many roses before, okay, we get it, And so searching for something like it, I was looking for a substance that would be constant, right? Something that would be forever. And like, well, people, there will always be different looking people, and there'll always be new people. There'll always be people who will always change their appearances up and do things different and intermingle and intertwine and mix cultures, and there'll never not be people, right? Here. So these characters are really just people that I've seen in passing. They may resemble someone that I know. I see people with, unique hairstyles, and I'll take those hairstyles and put them on a character. And it just seems to be an everlasting well of inspiration, right? I don't want to get stuck in the same loop. There's a saying about guitar players, once they reach a certain level of mastery, whatever sounds that they like the most, they get stuck in that, and they play that over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it blands them, it blends their craft. And so I'm troubleshooting and trying to find ways around all of this. And so this style speaks to that. It's a style that, as long as there are people walking around, I'll always have new content to pull from. This is a bit more. This is a commission piece. This is a bit more realism. I don't really paint in this language too much. When requested, here it goes back to the characters again. This was a piece I did for the People of Sacramento store, and this was a perfect project with the branding that they were doing. The People of Sacramento. I'm creating this collection that reflects all people, but specifically the people of Sacramento. I'm from Sacramento. And so it made sense to introduce these characters into the commercial space at that location. And again, it speaks to the diversity in age, in complexion, even the diversity in their fashion. So this was the first installation of that set. This goes back to more of some realism. Again, this was for some Atlanta rap group, and their record label 300 Entertainment had commissioned me to go down to LA and do this for an album release party. So more characters. Okay, the next style. This is a style, this is personally my favorite voicing. This is my favorite language to speak in, because I get to say, I get to be intentional one, and I get to say more. I get to share more. This particular piece is called Talent Show. And I'll give you a little context on talent shows to make it make sense. So talent show, one day I believe I woke up and had a bunch of projects to do, from graphic design stuff to paintings and a bunch of stuff, right? And I was feeling a little overwhelmed, and it just hit me one day, like, man, your life is a constant display of your skills, whether it be your social skills, your artistic skills, your business skills, your relationship building skills, all the above. And I had this moment of realization, like, yeah, you're chained to the stage, right? You're if you ever stop performing, that's when you stop surviving. Right? So you're essentially chained to the stage. There is no plan B. There is no going the other direction. And so that inspired that's something that I felt like creatives of all mediums, who are pursuing the arts, totally would understand, right? Not just a painter or a musician, whatever. All of us, I feel like, are living in a talent show. And and that even supersedes art. Your job. You're paid to, for your skills to be utilized for you to perform. So it kind of travels even linear further than just art. But talent show. So it comes from me having that realization, and going into some of the symbolism to tell the story. If you look at this guy's outfit, he's wearing the Michael Jackson Thriller outfit. That's when Michael Jackson was in his prime. And I'm very inspired by music. You'll see references to it in a lot of my pieces, especially in this narrative. So he has the Michael Jackson outfit on, and that outfit is symbolic of someone in their prime. That outfit was seen at a time when a guy was putting down his prime demonstration, and so the character is wearing that uniform. But if you look at the stage that he's on, the stage it doesn't match. The stage is raggedy. The stage is ripped up. The drapes are torn. And so there's some contrast in his abilities and where he's actually performing them at, where he's actually at. And one thing that my football coach used to tell me is, when you get on the field, you got to make sure you leave it all on the field. And what he meant by that was, when you get in the game, you have to make sure that you give it your all. You got to leave it all out there on the field. Don't take nothing back with you. So to speak to that, zoom in on this guy's head. He's on stage, and he has to lose his mind. Essentially, he has to show all that he can do. He has to get on there and let his ideas his ideas out, let his vision out, let his let what he has inside of him, take the stage. You look at his where his skin would be, it's mummified. The whole purpose of mummification was to preserve things. This concept that I'm speaking to a talent show, this is a message that is timeless, right? It's worthy of being preserved. Every artist coming up, now, before, and even after, should understand that signing up for this, you are signing up for the talent show. It is a display of your skills, so develop them, right? So when you get on stage, you can perform well and let it all hang out. Atmospherically, you look at the stool knocked over, look at the coins he's getting, it's minimal, he has we'll zoom in on here. If you look in his heart, his heart has like some people, a person in there watching or something, some eyeballs in there. Same as the eyeballs in the back. These people, those eyes are symbolic of the community that I come from. Those are the people behind me watching. You don't know good or bad who they are, but they're watching, and those are my people. Which is why they're symbolic of being present in his heart, right? Because that's what drives my artwork. That's what's always fueled my ability to communicate, which fuels my ability to create art, right? So it's all full circle. Lastly, I'll speak on and I'll change slide. Even though he's in this space where it doesn't match his abilities yet, right? The book down there, if you look at the book down there, it's the page is turning. And that's just symbolic of me reminding myself that this is just a chapter, right? This is just a page in the book. And soon it'll be another page and we'll be on a different chapter and it'll look different, right? So try to leave a lot of storylines, try to leave a lot of symbology in these paintings in this particular style. This is a commercial job I did with Strange Beast, which is a company, it's under Sierra Nevada. I see the big this one was going to be next. But yeah, so this is me using the storyline, the storytelling component, in a commercial space. Their product was a hard kombucha, and they wanted to make something that kind of mimicked the Little Shop of Horrors. The old movie. And so I just took their branding and their icons and just gave them a little bit of life, a little bit of energy, and Strange Beast, right? They wanted to emphasize on the beast component, emphasize on this thing being tenacious and having that big presence. And so this is how I communicated that message through my articulation. This is a piece that, this piece isn't done. This piece was done, but it's not done. It's one of those done but not done ones. So I'm gonna keep on swiping, but it just gives you a look at another, another layer. So, and this actually should have been with the clouds, but this is another look at how the clouds fit in a commercial space. This is a store in Sacramento called Upper Level, and put the clouds in the background. Again, it's a commercial space. It goes good. It speaks to a lot of different things. People want to get fly when they go in clothing stores. Here's some clouds, But that is actually the end of my slideshow. That is my last slide. And I just wanted to give you guys a sample of the different styles that I have and the different narratives and the different voicings and what their purpose is with that show. So any questions before we go into closing?
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. If you want to, you could turn it off the screen share for a sec. And that was awesome, man. I really enjoyed hearing the kind of the arc of, your decision-making process in terms of your career as an artist. And I think that a lot of that is like just super valuable for, especially for young artists as they're starting to make some decisions. A couple things I wanted to just highlight, if I could. One, that you and I'll just kind of go in order, but that you went to Las Vegas, and although a lot of folks would see Las Vegas as like the ultimate place of distraction, you knew yourself and you're like, really, I'm not into any of that stuff.
Right.
And so Las Vegas for you became this kind of space to almost like a residency where you could find yourself and spend some time. I think you said about 5 years.
Yeah, 5-year residency, man, for sure.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I just think that's really valuable for people to hear. Sometimes, you know, sometimes there's too much going on. It can also be a distraction. And sometimes I know I myself had to make a decision at one point that like I was going to abstain from television.
Okay.
You know, because I knew myself that like if I like would just be if I have a TV in my house or in my apartment, I would just spend so much time looking at the TV.
Right.
You know, so artists have to find that way that how can you get the work done?
Right.
So Jaya has a question here. I'll go ahead and read it from the chat. She says, can you talk a little bit more about your production work, producing events, and what do you see in the future with that? And what have some of your challenges been?
Got you. Yes, absolutely. So preservation, I always come back to communication and preservation. Like, how can I make sure that I can do this forever, right? So when it comes to the production of the shows, I think the reason why I created those was at a certain point I needed publication, right? I needed somebody to broadcast me, right? Like all of us, right? But I was missing that component. And just realistically, I wasn't ready for it. But that was something that I realized that I didn't have. And so, you know, I was like, well, why not just create it? Why not just create the production company or the outlet that, you know, bridges people together with the creatives. And then you can not only, you know, bridge yourself and connect yourself, but you can also utilize it for others. You can turn it into a business. You can do it gets real colorful with what you can do. So that was the purpose of why, you know, I even started doing shows. It's not that I want to be a show producer. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't at all. But I understand the community purpose that it serves, and I understand how it solidifies my positioning and keeps my art, right, which is the ultimate goal, right, is to preserve the art. It keeps my art in a position of importance. So it really comes full circle, you know, to serving the craft. You know, it just happens to have a component that other people, it can be in service of too. But some of how it all worked and some of the obstacles, it was pretty easy for me because I already knew so many people and already had so many different relationships. And because I deal in so many different forms of art, whether it be fashion or the graphics, I'm a part of those communities as well. I'm not just a part of like the artist community. So when it comes time to pull these people together, it's easy, right? Because I already have relationships. We're already colleagues. I just happen to be, you know, in multiple worlds. But it's been cool because I think a lot of people see the importance of it and the benefit of it, right? And I think a lot of people lack community. A lot of creatives definitely lack community. So to be able to create a platform that people can introduce themselves into, is I'm solving a big problem for you. You know, I'm solving a huge problem for you, and I'm making it entertaining. And so it actually hasn't been that hard for me. I've more have had to outthink it because I don't have the manpower of like a production team and a marketing team, you know. And the way I want to do it is so specific. I haven't even wanted that yet. I've been wanting to build it exactly to how I foresee it. And so, you know, I've just been using creativity to, you know, supersede the lack of maybe physical effort that it would take. You know, I'll create great marketing or create engaging marketing because I don't have 100 guys to promote it for me. So I'll let that responsibility lie on the art, right? How engaging the logo is and the location and how exciting I can make it. I'll lean on the art to make up in areas where I lack at. Obviously, the biggest obstacle for anything as an artist is funding. You know, getting the money to pay for all this stuff and see your vision through the best you can with the budget that you have. So that's been the biggest obstacle. But I mean, when is that not the biggest obstacle? So, sorry to be so long-winded on that one, but I hope.
No, I think that was super good. No, I appreciate that. That's a very comprehensive response. I mean, I actually would just add on to that I think that touches on something that you talked about in terms of your conversation with somebody who was a fashion designer, and that this idea being that if you had this work that you like to do or enjoy doing that also made you money, that would then give you that time and that space to really dive in and do other projects.
Right.
And that if you're just only focusing on like just the work that doesn't have for you, it was important that it had that, some of the work has a direct commercial application.
Right.
And that then gives you the space and the freedom to then do other work outside of that.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just thought that was really great to hear and great to have that insight from you. On how do you juggle it all, and I think the production company, the production work probably fits in and is all part of that.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
I actually had just one final question about about the mediums that you work in, specifically for your two-dimensional work, not necessarily for the fashion, like whether it's embroidery or whatever, because I assume that you're hiring some kind of some kind of company to produce that work. But do you work predominantly in your 2D work? Do you work predominantly in actually like traditional mediums like acrylic paint or gouache or pen, or marker and things like that? Or do you work using kind of digital tools, or do you find that you're mixing the two?
I'm definitely mixing the two. My master works, the main art that I focus on is acrylic on canvas. And never used oil really. Just now dabbling into can. But yeah, mainly acrylic on canvas. But I do use digital tools to kind of proofread my work, or go through color palettes and kind of make all my mistakes and see what looks good and what doesn't look good before I actually put it on canvas. And I'll kind of bounce around. I'll get, just like a song, sometimes a musician will get halfway through a song and have to stop and figure out the rest. Sometimes I'll get halfway through a painting and have to stop and go to the iPad and throw some things in there and erase them and throw some other things in there and change this around. And then once I figure out what looks good, then I'll go back to the canvas and apply those details. So I bounce around between digital and acrylics.
Cool. Excellent. Well, we didn't get into the Haggardwood Community Center as much, but I do know that a number of those kind of portrait designs that you talked about for a good bit in your presentation very much influenced, your eventual design at the Haggardwood Community Center. So I just encourage folks that if you enjoyed the talk, on this on the Community Murals Sacramento.org website, there'll be images, both in process images and final completed images of Brandon's mural project there, where he was able to work with some of the youth at the community center and some of the local people in that area. So Brandon, thank you for being part of Community Murals Sacramento and this pilot program. And I just appreciate you wrapping your arms around this with all the other projects that you're juggling and working on. You brought a great energy to this, and I just wish you the best as you continue to create work and continue to bring new levels of creativity and culture to Sacramento.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I really enjoyed it. It worked out perfectly with the location and everything. It was perfect. It was perfect. It couldn't have been better.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, it was really funny because we didn't even really know that you were necessarily from that neighborhood, or that you had grown up going there with your grandma to the community center. And so those kind of nice, just kind of serendipitous experiences were really fun to kind of, be a part of and see that happen, and see you kind of reconnecting with some folks who hadn't seen you for a real long time.
Right, man.
That's the nature of these kinds of community mural programs. And yeah, so thanks for being a part of that. Thanks everybody for watching this artist talk for Brandon Alexander. We'll have 3 more artist talks coming up. The next one is going to be next week with Shona McDaniel. So be sure to check in, stay tuned for that. Go to the communitymurals.org website to be able to see any and all events that are coming up. And the pilot program is coming to a close at the end of June. So all 10 murals will be completed, and we'll start up again when we're able to allocate some more funding. But the website will live on, and we hope that other projects continue to evolve out of all of this great work. So Brandon, thanks a lot. Thanks everybody. And we'll see you all real soon at another event.
You guys later.